Welcome to the Parenting Brief. I'm your host, Jessica Stewart-Gonzalez, an Arizona working mom and chief of the Office of Children's Health at the Arizona Department of Health Services. We're answering your biggest parenting questions up next. How long should you wait after giving birth before getting pregnant again? It's a big choice for families, and there's a lot of misinformation out there. Today, we're sharing expert advice to help you make the best decision for your family while keeping both mom and baby's health in mind. With us today is Dr. Siobhan Dolan, an OBGYN and clinical geneticist. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's great to be here.
So one of the things that comes up with families and their family planning is the timing of when to have more children. Most are considering things like, do they want more than one child in diapers at a time, or the cost of childcare for multiple children? But one of the things that should also be considered is the health of mom and those health-related considerations. Is there an ideal amount of time to wait after you give birth before getting pregnant again? Or does that timing not really matter?
It definitely does matter. So there's a measure called inter-pregnancy interval. It's sometimes abbreviated IPI. And what that is the time between the birth of one child and the conception of the next child. And if that is measured and is found to be less than 6 months, there is an increased risk of adverse outcomes. They include preterm birth, low birth weight, small for gestational age. So essentially, the sense from a medical standpoint is that mom's body hasn't had a chance to sort of replenish. And we see these adverse outcomes with a second pregnancy if the interval is less than 6 months. On the other end of the spectrum, if the interval, again, the IPI, the time between the birth of one child and the conception of the next, if that number is a big number, like over 24 months, or then even over 60 months in some cases, which would be out to 5 years, we actually also see an increase in adverse outcomes. The longer you get out, it is thought that the issue there has to do with maternal age. We know that as moms get older, through no fault of their own, it's just biology, we see an increased risk of genetic conditions. So the kind of optimal window is thought to be between about 18 to 24 months. That is a range, right? And it's not an absolute single, point in time, but it gives you a feel, not too short, not too long. The sort of window of just right is in the 18 to 24 month range.
There potentially are risks no matter your age, no matter the time between pregnancies. But as we are seeing women choosing to have children later, late 20s and into their early 40s, this may come with their own set of those health considerations, but could also add pressure to having multiple children quickly. Is there any advice for people in that situation?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that let's say you're in your late 30s, early 40s, you are in a conundrum between wanting to have time between your pregnancies, but also the reality that with advancing maternal age, there are greater risks of genetic conditions. So it's a balancing act. And for each individual, the balancing act can be customized along with, talking to their provider, talking to their partner, seeing what makes the most sense. One of the other issues is that as women get older, not only are there the genetic risks of the fetus, but the maternal risks, right? At 42, having a pregnancy, if you have heart disease, if you have hypertension, if you have diabetes, it's a strain on one's body. For you to deliver your child and then get pregnant very quickly is going to put a tremendous strain on your body's ability to, go through the process of labor and delivery and all the cardiovascular changes that are required to deliver a baby, to manage all those fluids, and then to get back to your pre-pregnancy state. So I think that's another factor to factor into your decision making. But I would sort of stop and think it through a little bit, because the notion that you just deliver, reset, everything starts from, scratch again. We used to think that, and the data suggests that that's not true at all. And we certainly want to educate families so they can make pregnancy-related decisions with good data.
It's one thing to talk about healthy individuals, healthy pregnancies, and healthy babies who are born. But I also want to talk about circumstances in which a family experiences a loss, either through miscarriage or stillbirth. Is that spacing still the same recommended time frame?
For sure. And that's a really good question. So I'd say there's sort of two parts to that answer. The first is the psychological coping, and there's certainly a grief reaction. And I'd say that's regardless of the gestational age. If you lose a pregnancy at 2 months or, 9 months, certainly at 9 months, if you have a demise closer to term, more people in your life might be aware of the pregnancy. But I'd say the loss is devastating for families. So I'd say in those circumstances, you need to give yourself time for bereavement, give yourself time to process the loss. And, sometimes that means seeking help, counseling, sometimes medication. Each family's different, but really taking the time to psychologically and emotionally deal with the loss. Now, on the more physical side, an earlier loss, like in the first trimester up to about 12 or 13 weeks, it's thought for women to wait about 2 to 3 months to have their period about 2 or 3 times, and then go ahead and try to become pregnant again if they choose to. There's not a lot of solid scientific data behind that, like that 2 months is better than 1, that 3 is better than 2. In general, I think we give this guidance for a couple reasons. One, so a person's period can reset. And then we also have a sense of when their last period was, so we can start to time out their pregnancy and their due date. Now, on the further along, if you're, 36, 37, 38 weeks and tragically have a demise, that has created the physical strains on your body of a full-term pregnancy, even if tragically the baby's not born alive. So in that instance, you'd be more in line with the 18 to 24 month window, which is to say, giving your body, your heart, your vascular system, et cetera, a chance to readapt to non-pregnant state, which takes about 3 months to start with, and then giving your body a chance to nutritionally replete itself and so forth. But again, never, ever less than 6 months. It's what we call a rapid repeat pregnancy. The data there is unfortunately quite poor, and we don't want people to end up in that window having an adverse outcome.
As families are making these decisions for those subsequent births and what that birth spacing looks like, what are some of the birth control options that are available for families while they're in between pregnancies?
So what we offer folks nowadays is what we call LARC, sometimes abbreviated LARC, long-acting reversible contraception. So there are two major methods of long-acting reversible contraception, i.e., it's not something you have to think about again and again at each active intercourse, but it's reversible. So when you want to become pregnant again, you get it removed. And the two major methods are what's called an IUD, intrauterine device, or a implant. And the intrauterine device or the implant can be both placed right around the time of delivery. And again, if you want to become pregnant sooner, you talk to your doctor, you get it removed. You can become pregnant sooner. It's not like someone's going to hold you to the 18 months. We just want everyone to be fully informed about the data and then help them out, because it is hard to take care of everybody and yourself.
Click on the show notes to learn more about the importance of birth spacing. Share this episode with the friends and family in your life that are still growing their families. Tap the follow button to get a notification when our next episode is live. Until next time, this is Jessica. You've got this.